Here we are on the U.S. Geological Survey's National Map Viewer. That's found at nationalmap.gov/viewer. Um, so here we're here to get ourselves some, grab ourselves some imagery. And so I'm going to go ahead and let's see here, zoom in box here. I'm working on Spokane, so I'm going to zoom into Spokane. I apologize if my internet's a little slow. It's not it's not the fastest internet in the world. Alright, so there's Spokane. At this point we're just going to go ahead and switch from topographical to imagery here. Now you can see Spokane. Now what we want to do, we want let's see, one of these buttons, this one here, say download data. In fact, let's do download data by bounding box, okay? And so what we're going to do, we're going to start from the top left, go down to the bottom right, and just make sure we have all of the airport within the bounding box. So something like that. Okay. Now we want to pick our theme, and that is ortho imagery. We'll say next. And now we have to decide which one of these we want. Well, more than likely we want the latest imagery, which is from 2012. They did some modifications to the runway not too long ago, so you want to make sure we have the latest stuff that we can find. So you'll just select that, go to next. Alright, and you can also see that it's in a JPEG 2000 format. Just a little extra detail there, some coordinates, all that stuff. And you also can see that the size is 0.3 meters. Some of it's 1 meter. You want to try and get the smallest, highest resolution stuff that you can. So we have that selected in our selected items box. Here we're going to say checkout. Okay, then you just enter your email. USGS will send you an email with download links. Click on those links. You'll download your data. And then you'll get a folder with a bunch of files in it. In fact, I can show you. Well, let's see here. You'll get a folder with a bunch of files in it, but the one that you'll be interested in, or the one you want, is the JPEG image. And it'll look something like this. In fact, it'll look more or less like this. It should be a square image. In this case, this one's, I believe it's 1024 by 1024 pixels. There's Gmax telling me that my driver's failing me. Okay. So you do that, you'll get. In this case, when I download my data, I ended up with 16 tiles or 16 different images. So now we have that those downloaded. We'll go to Gmax here. I'm just going to do a new one here. Make sure you start it through your FSX Gmax shortcut, not the regular Gmax shortcut. Alright, so now we're just going to go and create a plane. So we'll understand the permit is. We'll press plane. We're going to click, drag, and release in the top view, which should be your the left top left viewport in Gmax. Now we're going to go on your parameters here, and we're going to resize this to 1000 by 1000 meters. And the next entries we have here are the length and width segments. What this does, it breaks your plane or your polygon, if you want to call it that. It breaks it into smaller pieces, And so in this case, it broke it into one 4x4 plane, so it has 16 squares within it. But say if you had, well, let's say if you had twice as many, well, let's say, well, for example, let's say if you had 64 image tiles, well, then you would want to create 8 length segments and 8 width segments. And so then you'd have 64 different tiles within your plane. But in this case, since it has 16 tiles, that's 4 times 4, and since it's square, we want 4 length segments and 4 width segments. However, though, if you did have a different number of tiles that maybe ended up being a rectangle or something like that, so let's say we'll draw a rectangle here. Let's say if you had 20 image tiles, we'd want to have maybe 1,000 meters in length and 800 meters in width. And then we want to have 5 width segments, or excuse me, or whichever way it goes here. Let's see, 5 length segments. How about that? That's better. So now you have 20 tiles within your plane, and so you can fit things like that. But anyhow, I'm going to go ahead and delete that and keep what I have here. Let's go ahead and center this. It's always a good idea. Alright, so just under here in these entries here, we'll just type in 0 and make sure all of them say 0. And again, I had the move tool selected there. Alright, now what we need to do, we need to convert this to an editable poly. Alright, now we're going to go and under the selection drop down menu, and by the way, this is our modify tab, and this here is our create tab, so we're kind of going back and forth. I'm trying to point out as many things as I can, but again, this is getting right into it pretty quick here. So we're on here on the selection drop down menu, we're going to select polygon, or select by polygon, and so now we can just select each individual square within our plane. I'm going to go ahead and start out with this one. And what we need to do, let me adjust our perspective view real quick so you can see it a little better. Here's all your viewport tools, so you can rotate, pan, or whatever. Alright, we can see our plane. I'm going to go back to our top view here. We have this polygon selected. We're going to go into Gmax Material Editor. We're going to say New, Flight SimX. We're going to set the specular down to black. Here on Diffuse, we're going to click that button. Say Bitmap. Let's see, we need to navigate to our folder here, which is called Image. And I happen to know that the image I want, you probably want to make sure you have them all named, so you're not rummaging through them all and trying to figure out which one goes where. But I have these fairly well named, I know. After doing this a couple times, I'm pretty sure I know where each one goes. I'm going to take Material 1. Okay. I'm going to click this button here. This looks like a checkered cube. I'm going to click that, and then we'll say Apply. Alright. Let's go to our modifier list now. So we're going to press this drop down menu. Okay, we're going to say UVW map. Alright, and so now you can see we can actually see our image now. Let's go ahead and collapse all. So we're going to right click on the UV mapping here, and we're just going to say collapse all. Okay, we're going to do that again just so you get the idea. We'll go to our next poly. In fact, I think the next one that I want to do is this top one. It doesn't really matter, you could do whichever one you wanted, but so I have our next one here. Let's just say on the material editor, we'll say New, Flight Sim X. Okay, we're going to set specular down to black. Press the button next to defuse, say bitmap. And the next one should be material 2, if I have it named correctly. Alright, so we're going to press the checkered cube and then say apply. Alright, now we're going to say on the modifier drop down menu, we're going to say UV map. That's under UV coordinate modifiers. Okay, we're going to say UV map, and there it shows up there. And so now you just want to do the same thing for the rest of these polygons until you have all your tiles applied. I'm going to go ahead and collapse this all, say collapse all. That's very important to collapse that after you're done UV mapping it. Alright, so let me finish this plane and I'll be back with you in a second. Alright, I have all those textured, or all our image tiles applied. So now we have a nice plane. So actually what we should do now is, you'll notice, especially in the perspective view here, let me enlarge this. You can do that with this very bottom right button here. You'll notice that it's not doing it too much right now, but sometimes the texture will warp. It'll be hard to see and stuff like that. But what we can do to fix that is go to text and just right click on the word perspective up here, and this goes for any viewport, and just say texture correction. Make sure that's checked. We can do the same thing here. You can right click here. You can also add it, I'll point out that you can also switch between wireframe, smooth, and highlights, and there's some other options here, but these are the main two I use. Alright, so there's our image. So now our goal is to scale and align this image so that we can use it for our project. And so what we need to do, you should have Airport Design Editor installed. I'm going to go ahead and start that. Since we're working on Spokane, we're going to open it. We're just going to open it as the stock default airport here. Just typed in the identifier. Alright, open that. Loads it into the Airport Design Editor there. We're going to click on the main runway. Then we're going to right click on it and say edit, edit object. There's a couple measurements we want to put down here. Airport Design Editor should be set up so that it's the units are in meters. So now we have the width of the runway. It's 45.7. It's a good idea to round up, so I'm going to say 46 meters. And the length is 2739.2. Again, we're going to round up to 2740. Alright. That's all we need to do for that. We'll go back into Gmax here. I'm going to close our material editor. We don't need it anymore. We're going to go back to our Create tab. We're going to create a plane. And this is just to get it aligned. You may not even end up using this same plane for the runway, but that's just to get it aligned. Alright, so our width is 46. We're just going to enter that in kind of like we did with the other plane that we made. And the length is 2740. And for this, we only need one length segment and one width segment. That's all we need. Now let's make sure that we have the coordinates set to 0 on this. So we have the runway selected, and you can also select any object by just right clicking using the selecting box, or just click on the object and you can select it. Alright, so anyhow, we have the runway selected, and you just want to make sure that you center it. So let me just show you that again. So it's off center now. You can see down here that Y and Z are both at 0, but X is not. So just type in 0, press enter, and it's centered perfectly in our little world. Oops. Alright. So we have the main runway, or at least something representing it. Now we need to get our background image aligned. So we're just going to click on it to select it using the select object button. So one thing we're going to do, we're going to have to rotate it. So we're just going to, eyeball this, get close. How about just rotating it 45, or somewhere about like that. Now let's take the scale on uniform here and just scale it up. So just going to click and drag. Let's go to the move tool and lower this until we can see the runway plane easily. So we're just gonna, we can just use the arrows here and just lower it a meter. That works well. Alright. And let's continue scaling this up, and we're just going to use these tools here to get our plane positioned. We're just going to keep playing with it. Alright, we're getting close. We're closer. Let's see, I don't really want to see this grid at the moment. Let's see if I can get rid of that. I know it's somewhere here. Grids. Let's turn off the home grid. That's better. That makes things easier to see. A little easier on the eyes. Alright, so we definitely need to rotate this a little more, because if you zoom in here, in fact we can just enlarge this, that'll be easier to see. We're not quite aligned here, so we need to rotate it a little bit. It's getting closer. Maybe just type in values here. Alright, that's getting pretty good. Go up another 1/10. That's pretty close. Let's move our plane a little more here. That's getting there. It needs to be scaled up slightly. There, that's even closer. I know it needs to move down just a slight bit. We can just use these arrows now to just move it. That's with the move tool selected. We can just use these arrows to move it one direction or another with very small increments. And that's pretty close. You want to make sure you get as close as you can, so you would probably try and get that edge lined up a little better. In fact, this thing, if you zoom in, you get a little precise, a little more precise scaling. Or just scale it down slightly more. I'm going to just scale it up. So you just keep going back and forth. Keep looking at it. We can now just use the X value here to scale it. That's looking fairly close, maybe even just a little more. Scale it down just a little bit. More. So yeah, it looks pretty good. So anyhow, you can just make sure you get that as close as you can. But you got the general idea, and so that's basically how we get our background image. Download the tiles, then we create a plane in Gmax with the appropriate length and width segments and the appropriate size, dimensions, and all that. Apply our image tiles to each individual polygon, and then create a runway or the main runway of our airport. Make sure that runway is centered, then align the background image with the scale tool, the rotate tool, the move tool, all those to get it aligned perfectly with our runway. So yeah, that's the first step to starting a project like this.